Chapter 5. Our advertisement brings a visitor. The morning's efforts had been too much for my fragile health, and by the afternoon I was exhausted. After Holmes left for the concert, I lay down on the sofa and tried to sleep for a few hours. It was a useless attempt. My mind was too stimulated by everything that had happened, and the strangest theories crowded my thoughts. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the distorted, ape-like face of the murdered man. That face had left such a sinister impression on me that I found it difficult to feel anything but gratitude toward whoever had removed its owner from the world. If human features ever signaled pure malice, they were certainly those of Enoch J. Drebber of Cleveland. Still, I recognized that justice had to be served, and the victim's character did not excuse his murder in the eyes of the law. The more I thought about it, the more extraordinary my companion's theory of poisoning seemed. I remembered how he had leaned down to sniff the man's lips. He had undoubtedly detected something that led him to that conclusion. If it wasn't poison, what could have caused his death, given there were no wounds or signs of strangulation? On the other hand, whose blood was pooled on the floor? There were no signs of a struggle, and the victim had no weapon. As long as these questions remained unanswered, I knew sleep would not come easily for either Holmes or myself. His quiet, self-confident manner convinced me that he had already formed a theory explaining all the facts, though I couldn't even begin to guess what it was. He returned very late, so late that I knew the concert could not have kept him the entire time. Dinner was already on the table when he finally appeared. "It was magnificent," he said, taking his seat. "Do you remember what Darwin says about music? He claims the power to produce and appreciate it existed in the human race long before speech. Perhaps that is why we are so subtly influenced by it. There are vague memories in our souls of those misty centuries when the world was in its infancy." "That is a very broad idea," I remarked. "One's ideas must be as broad as nature if they are to interpret nature," he answered. "What's the matter? You aren't looking like yourself. This Brixton Road affair has upset you." "To tell the truth, it has," I said. "I should be more resilient after my experiences in Afghanistan. I saw my own comrades killed at Maiwand without losing my nerve." "I understand. There is a mystery here that stimulates the imagination. Where there is no imagination, there is no horror. Have you seen the evening paper?" "No. It gives a fairly good account of the case. However, it fails to mention that when the body was moved, a woman's wedding ring fell to the floor. It is just as well it doesn't." "Why?" "Look at this advertisement," he answered. "I had this sent to every newspaper immediately after the investigation this morning." He threw the paper to me. It was the first announcement in the Found column. "In Brixton Road this morning, a plain gold wedding ring, found on the roadway between the White Hart Tavern and Holland Grove. Apply to Dr. Watson, 221B Baker Street, between 8 and 9 this evening." "Excuse me for using your name," he said. "If I used my own, some of those idiots at Scotland Yard would recognize it and try to interfere." "That is fine," I answered. "But if someone comes, I don't actually have the ring." "Oh, yes, you do," he said, handing me one. "This will work perfectly. It is almost an exact copy. And who do you expect will answer this?" "The man in the brown coat, our friend with the square-toed boots. If he doesn't come himself, he will send an accomplice." "Wouldn't he think it's too dangerous?" "Not at all. If my view of the case is correct, this man would risk anything rather than lose that ring. I believe he dropped it while leaning over Drebber's body and didn't notice it at the time. After leaving the house, he realized it was missing and hurried back, but found the police already there because he had foolishly left a candle burning. He had to pretend to be drunk to avoid suspicion at the gate. Now, put yourself in his place. He would look at the evening papers hoping someone found it. He will see this and be overjoyed. He won't see a trap. There's no reason for him to link the finding of a ring to the murder. He will come. You will see him within the hour." "And then?" I asked. "You can leave him to me. Are you armed? I have my old service revolver and some ammunition. You had better clean and load it. He will be a desperate mon, and though I plan to take him by surprise, we should be ready for anything." I went to my room and followed his advice. When I returned, the table was clear and Holmes was engaged in his favorite hobby, playing the violin. "The plot thickens," he said as I entered. "I just received a reply to my American telegram. My view of the case is correct." "And what is that?" I asked eagerly. "My violin needs new strings," he remarked. "Put your pistol in your pocket. When the fellow arrives, speak to him naturally. Leave the rest to me. Don't frighten him by staring too hard." "It is 8 o'clock now," I said, looking at my watch. "Yes, he should be here any minute. Open the door slightly. That's it. Now put the key on the inside. Thank you. This is a strange old book I found at a stall yesterday, De Jure Intergentes, published in Latin in 1642. The world was a very different place when this was printed." As he spoke, the doorbell rang sharply. Sherlock Holmes rose quietly and moved his chair toward the door. We heard the servant walk through the hall and the click of the latch. "Does Dr. Watson live here?" asked a clear but harsh voice. We couldn't hear the servant's reply, but the door closed and someone began to climb the stairs with a slow, shuffling step. A look of surprise crossed Holmes's face as he listened. There was a faint tap at the door. "Come in," I called to Mute. Instead of the violent man we expected, a very old and wrinkled woman hobbled into the room. She seemed dazzled by the light. After a quick curtsy, she stood blinking at us, fumbling in her pocket with shaky fingers. I glanced at Holmes. He looked so disappointed that I struggled to keep a straight face. The old woman pulled out a newspaper and pointed to our ad. "This is why I'm here, gentlemen," she said. "A gold wedding ring found in Brixton Road. It belongs to my daughter Sally. She's only been married a year, and her husband is a steward on a ship. I don't know what he'd do if he came home and found her without her ring. He's a short-tempered man, especially when he's been drinking. She went to the circus last night and—" "Is this her ring?" I asked. "Thank God!" she cried. "Sally will be so happy tonight. That's the ring." "What is your address?" I asked, picking up a pencil. 13 Duncan Street, Houndsditch. It's a long way from here." "The Brixton Road is not on the way from any circus to Houndsditch," Holmes said sharply. The old woman turned and looked at him with her red-rimmed eyes. "The gentleman asked for my address," she said. "Sally lives in lodgings at 3 Mayfield Place, Peckham." "And your name?" "Sawyer. Hers is Dennis. She married Tom Dennis, a hard-working lad at sea, but when he's on shore, the bars and the liquor—" "Here's your ring, Mrs. Sawyer," I interrupted, following a sign from Holmes. "It clearly belongs to your daughter. I'm glad to return it." With many mumbled blessings, the old woman put the ring in her pocket and shuffled down the stairs. The moment she was gone, Holmes rushed to his room and returned in a heavy coat and scarf. "I'll follow her," he said hurriedly. "She must be an accomplice and will lead me to him. Wait up for me." He was out the door seconds after her. Looking through the window, I saw her walking feebly along the street, with Holmes following at a distance. I realized sleep was impossible until I heard the result of his mission. It was nearly midnight when I heard his key in the lock. The moment he entered, I saw by his face that he had failed. He looked both amused and annoyed, until he finally burst into a loud laugh. "I wouldn't want the police to know about this," he cried, dropping into his chair. "I've mocked them so much they would never let me hear the end of it. But I can afford to laugh. because I know I'll win in the end." "What happened?" I asked. "I don't mind telling a story at my own expense. She walked a short way, then started limping and looking tired. She hailed a cab. I got close enough to hear her shout the address, 13 Duncan Street, Houndsditch." I thought this was the real deal, so I climbed onto the back of the cab, a trick every detective should master. We rattled along until we reached the street. I hopped off before the door and strolled casually by. The cab stopped. The driver opened the door and waited, but no one came out. When I reached him, he was frantically searching the empty cab and swearing loudly. There was no sign of his passenger. At number 13, I found out the house belongs to a respectable paper hanger, and no one named Sawyer or Dennis has ever lived there. "You mean to say," I cried in amazement, "that a feeble old woman got out of a moving cab without you or the driver seeing her?" "Old woman be damned," Holmes snapped. "We were the old women for being so easily fooled. It must have been a young man, an active one, and an incredible actor. The disguise was perfect. He realized he was being followed and used this to give me the slip. It shows our man isn't working alone. He has friends willing to take risks for him. Now, Doctor, you look exhausted. Take my advice and go to bed." I was indeed weary, so I followed his suggestion. I left Holmes sitting by the dying fire, and late into the night I heard the melancholy sound of his violin as he continued to puzzle over the mystery.